Okay, call the meeting to order, and I'd like to stand for the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just take a moment, think of the troops that are not with their families. Okay, thank you. Okay, we're going to start off with our Chick-fil-A application. ZBA application ZB 25001. Chick-fil-A 18 Westage Drive area variances. Should I read them all? Their area variances?
I
Or?
didn't list them. I did not list them.
I love you, Deb.
That's why I didn't list
The board is to review the application supporting documentation that was accepted and referred by the board in the January 21st meeting. So, sir, you have the floor.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just pull up the exhibits here.
I had them all open, actually, Tim. See them at the top?
See that one. Let's see. That one's helpful there. There's the one I was looking for. A nice colored version always helps. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Tim Freitag with Bowler Engineering. We're the site civil engineer on the project. Along with me tonight is Darryl Mansfield with Cushman Wake, representing the applicant Chick-fil-A, along with Melissa Cherubino with Whiteman, Osterman, and Hanna in support of their application from January 6, 2025 to this board requesting a few area variances. What we'd like to keep our presentation to tonight is, I just want to introduce the site plan again. I know we briefly went over that at our initial meeting, but I just want to make sure there's a clear understanding of this board of the site plan, what we're proposing to do, and why this is such a unique situation needing relief from the zoning ordinance for the setback and signage variances. I'll turn it briefly over to Melissa to overview some of the county comments that we received to date, and then go through the area variance criteria should this board feel it necessary. Does that sound appropriate?
Sure.
Great, thank you. On the screen here is just a colored version of the site plan that was submitted in the application package. Backing up before we talk about the proposed improvements, a reminder, existing today is a currently vacant restaurant on the site. It was formerly a Boston Market, a little bit larger than the proposed 5,400 square foot Chick-fil-A restaurant. And it's also over here. The existing restaurant's over here, and the existing driveway to the town center shopping district is right here. Is everybody familiar with that existing condition today? So when we first attacked this site to look at the best site planning and use for the site, we looked at positioning the Chick-fil-A building where the existing restaurant building is. We even looked at potentially reusing that building for our development. But there's a lot of congestion at that existing driveway today. And we figured out that's because that driveway into the town center is so close to the signalized intersection. Everybody's turning down West Merritt Boulevard and taking that quick left into the center, and it's causing some congestion here, because even in this area you can see that the stacking stacks up behind that traffic signal. So the biggest benefit of this project, we're relocating that driveway further west, farther away from that traffic signal, eliminating a lot of that congestion here, providing more stacking capacity as you approach that signal, and less congestion and interference for that left turn movement into the site. Doing this allows us to pull the building a little bit further, closer to Route 9, and really redevelop this parking lot area up here that's rarely used. Those parking spaces are constantly left open, and a lot of the parking spaces for the rest of the center and the old restaurant were off to the west. You got Dunkin' Donuts just down the page slightly. So what makes this a unique development project site is we have no access to Route 9, we have no access to West Merritt Boulevard. Again, as I just went through, access to the site is the most important when you design this. So our access is all internal to this town center, Hudson Valley Town Center mall area. This is within the planned shopping center district. The overall town center is about 16 acres, and we're going to redevelop this northeastern portion. Since we have no driveways to Route 9 or West Merritt Boulevard, and are a pad site out in the center of this parking lot, that's the trigger for the requested area variances. Now just diving into the site plan a little bit further. Proposed parking lot, about 88 spaces out in front of the store. You'd enter this parking lot, 2 driveways here off of the south, again internal to the shopping center for access. We've got a isolated drive-through layout around the perimeter here. It's just a different color than pavement because it's actually concrete. That's why it's shown a little bit lighter here. It's a dual lane drive-through, which is very unique to Chick-fil-A than your typical quick serve restaurant. So there's 2 lanes all the way through. And in the front here, there's actually a third lane for additional stacking. That 2 lanes provides an abundant amount of queuing for this use. And rather than having 2 menu boards and order points merging to 1 lane for your pickup, you can keep that 2 lanes all the way through. And what Chick-fil-A does is rather than your typical drive-through window, there's actually a door here, and team members hand deliver your meal to both lanes. So that's how that second lane can stay in operation for this use. Team members will also be stationed within the order point and menu boards, taking orders on tablets, collecting payment, answering questions, creating a better experience for guests. And because of that, we've got these gray elements here in the drive-thru that are canopies.
Those are awnings, correct?
They're canopies, yep. Physical structures, more so than like a fabric awning. They're canopies that can support like 6 cars underneath of them.
Quick question here,
Yep.
with these parking, and I think the question came up at the planning board meeting. You're going to have parking for people to pull in, pick up their stuff, and leave?
That's right. So separate from the drive-through, there's still a dining room inside, and then also you can order ahead on an app, pull into a couple parking spots, pick up your meal, walk inside, pick up your meal, and leave. And what is the benefit of this isolated drive-through layout is this dedicated parking field in the middle, and the parking space is here. You can park, go in the building, come back out to your car without ever having to cross the drive-through traffic. So that's the benefit of having an isolated drive-through layout, is the flow of travel for vehicles can go around the perimeter of the site and leave, and then create a safer environment for guests walking to and from the parking field to the front of the store.
But what you're saying though is cars are having to go the entire length.
Speak into the mic, please.
The cars are having to go the entire length of the parking lot to actually get to the drive-through.
That's right. So the drive-through entrance is here,
Yep.
and you would navigate through this outer aisle to get there.
Is this causing a reduction of parking spaces for the other businesses in the shopping area?
Yes, when you look at the existing conditions compared to the proposed, it's a net loss of 2 parking spots. But it's adding all of that stacking capacity in the drive-through component
A
because there's no
net loss
drive-through today.
including your parking spaces. So that parking lot gets pretty full. So if they're losing spaces, but you're adding some for them, how do people access the shopping area from the spots you're taking away? That's question number 1. Question number 2, West Merritt, well, you're going in from West Merritt Boulevard. You're going into your new access road, and then you're going on the little diagonal and then around in, correct? So you're kind of making, I don't know what shape that is, but basically almost a circle, but not connected, correct? The little slant area next to the existing shopping area, there's truck deliveries that happen there quite often. So, I mean, I know this is more for the planning board, but it is an area variance. So my concern is, number 1, the reduction of parking spaces for the other areas, people having to cross, and then also the congestion of truck deliveries for the restaurant and the liquor store. How is that going to work?
Sure. So in our planning board application, we did an entire parking study. We went out there and collected usage data for the entire center. Very underutilized. So we're not concerned with the reduction of parking. The
Was
planning,
that done before the cannabis store went in or after?
I'm not familiar on the cannabis store, so that was submitted with our original application, maybe in the fall sometime. But again, this quadrant up here is an existing parking field. It was like 10% utilized, if that.
Oh, yeah, I know that,
Very-
the Christmas
very
tree.
empty
I'm more
open
talking
space.
about the area to the left, the parking area to the left.
Over here.
Yes.
Yep.
And you're reducing the spots in there.
Well, we're also eliminating an existing restaurant from that area, right? So the Boston Market utilized those parking spaces. So that facility and demand on that parking area is
Okay.
going away, and we're repositioning that demand up here.
And what about the truck deliveries for the existing restaurant and shops?
Yeah, and then truck delivery should really happen behind the center.
They can't when the access doors for the restaurant and the liquor store are right there.
It should be off hours. It's a good point that
It's
we
not
want
off hours.
It's a good point. We'll go back to the owners and talk about that. It's kind of outside our scope of limits, so we haven't discussed
Okay.
that with the shopping center owners, so I appreciate you bringing that up.
Mhm.
Our deliveries are off hours. I'm not sure if that restaurants are off hours too to accommodate traffic, but, and then we are providing this pedestrian connectivity here, just in case there is a need for overflow parking in our lot to the rest of the center. Pedestrians could
And there'll
walk
be
on
a
that sidewalk
crosswalk for the
there.
pedestrians?
There's a sidewalk right here, and the crossing is right here. It's not striped at the moment, but we could certainly stripe that similar to the striping that's here.
But no sidewalk area? to
Yes,
attach the
this is a
crosswalk.
sidewalk right here.
Is that, I have another question.
Yeah.
The smaller, right where your cursor is now, there's like a small square. Is that the dumpsters?
Right here is the dumpster
Okay.
enclosure. That's right. And that's going to be a full masonry enclosure to match the masonry of the building.
Now, I believe also at the planning board, there was a comment made that during shift change, you're going to have about 12 people working in this place.
On average, a shift is about 15 folks, and then during peak hours, lunch and sometimes dinner, during a shift change, there might be a staggered overlap of that shift to accommodate the peak periods. So at certain times, you could have, 25 team members or staff.
All right, and those are also taking parking spaces too.
Correct. That's right.
So you're going to have a designated parking area for the employees?
They would be utilizing the
furthest ones away
from the door, that's right. And the planning board challenged us with actually eliminating more parking. So contrary to the concern that we're losing parking, the planning board actually wanted us to lose some additional parking. But to that exact reason, we went back to the applicant to see, and they really need around this 80 number to support those peak period demands.
What did they want you, I don't remember that in the meeting, what did they want you to replace the parking, to reduce the parking for?
Green space. Yep. Yeah, I think it was at one of the first meetings, the question was, banking any of these parking spots up along Route 9, just because it seemed excessive.
They wanted more
Yes.
green space there or something like that?
Green space, that's right. But you got to remember, there's 90 indoor seats to serve as the dining room, in
How
addition.
many spots in the dining room?
There's 90 seats.
90 seats.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a lot of, and then you got a couple of seats outside too, right?
There's some seasonal dining out there. I wouldn't go out there right now, but yes, there's seasonal
Yeah.
dining. And then also your third-party orders, your mobile order or pickup, and then if you
Now,
just want to go.
is that one big room, or is it going to be multiple rooms?
It's one big room. There's a front desk. You would walk up, place your order, and then the dining room's off to the side, but all open.
Another question that I have, I'm sorry, did you have another question?
No, I'm still processing
Okay.
this. Go ahead.
So one of the things that, and we certainly have had a lot of Chick-fil-A commercials lately, so they must be priming the audience. So one of the things, and I recognize that Chick-fil-A is actually out of Georgia, and this is New York, and so when you say you're going to have employees standing outside taking orders, that doesn't appeal to me as a resident and thinking of my neighbors standing outside taking orders on days like today, certainly. But the double drive-through, and you said that there's the one door that opens up and magically somebody comes out with your order. So, but they are going to have to cross that one lane, right? The one drive-through lane to get to the outer lane.
To get to the second,
inner
correct.
lane and the outer lane. Okay.
Yes.
So there is, I mean, I'm assuming it's minimal, but who knows? People are crazy drivers these days, and I would hope that there is some kind of safety measure, a light or something to indicate, like, don't hit your gas. We have somebody coming out with your order right now.
Yeah, so this dual lane has been rolled out across the country, including a dozen locations in upstate New York. They're in Plattsburgh, Albany, Syracuse, Rochester, Buffalo already for the past 8 years in those markets. They've added heaters to the canopies for some of the cold days, and then some of the really cold days, they're not going to put their team members out in that concerned weather. So there are going to be times when team members aren't out there, and sometimes they use delineator markers out there to merge down to one lane at those certain times. But Chick-fil-A internally has to go through employee training if you're going to staff the drive-through. They make sure every team member that's going to be out in the drive-through, I think there's an age requirement of 18 years old, and you have to go through this training course through Chick-fil-A if you're going to be out there interacting with vehicles to your exact concern. And then right at that door, there's striped crosswalks, there's pedestrian signage, and they're trained to alternate deliveries. So they're going to hand that delivery to the first car. That car is going to pull forward, the next car is going to pull up and stop, and then they can go to the second lane once that car is stopped in front of that car to deliver to the second.
Now, some of this green space here that was being suggested, I noticed that I'm looking at the overall plan for the town center, and they have trees in the parking lots scattered throughout. Okay. Could you do that in your parking area, put trees in there? Kind of make some of the county people happy. Instead of having a big, vast parking lot, could they put trees in, scatter trees throughout the parking lot, between the parking spaces, something like that?
Sure. So right now, the trees are these green areas that you see throughout the site. Those are the proposed trees. So there are a couple
You got
here.
you got all those lines of spaces there.
But you're suggesting like maybe in the middle here,
Right.
adding
right.
another curbed island with some
Add
trees.
4 or 5 trees in
buffer it,
there.
and lose a couple parking spots. So in order to do that,
But
we
you don't
would
want
have
to, you don't want to, I understand you don't want to cover up the sign in front of the building.
That's
We're going to talk
right.
about that.
We'll get to signage, yes, understood. So that comment came up with the planning board to maybe do that at this curbed island right here. But for our delivery truck to make this 180-degree turn, his trailer drags across this island.
Yeah.
So it was proposed as just striping. What the planning board's asked us to do is make that a mountable concrete curb. So there is actually some elevation change, so it is a step up to help delineate both vehicle traffic around, so people aren't cutting that corner too sharp, but also to allow some area of refuge for pedestrians who might be walking in from the Route 9 right-of-way and walking here. That's an elevated concrete area acting as a sidewalk to provide some
A
vehicle
crosswalk,
protection
something in there.
That's right. So that's why there's no trees proposed there. To answer your question, yes, we could, curb out an island here, add a couple trees. It's at the loss of 2 parking spaces to do that. So it's just balancing the parking demand versus that benefit. Or maybe it's lose 1 on the outer lane here for additional tree.
Well, I think there's trees along Route 9 there.
There are, so you can see kind of in the background here, some of those shadows. Those are all proposed to remain.
But I'm just
So,
thinking of the parking lot, break up that parking lot a little bit, just the aesthetics of it, I understand the need for parking, but also the aesthetics would be nice too,
is there overall less permeable space?
So one of our variances, and I can read through the list of variances once everybody's got a good understanding of the site plan and the operations of the store here. One of the variances is an increase in impervious area. So the area that we're talking about right now is about 77% impervious. 70% is the requirement. We're taking that 77% and going to 79%. So it's actually an increase of some additional pavement.
72%.
But keep in mind, these roadways here that are serving the whole center are within that calculation. So the pavement of the road, is hurting us in an instance for when it comes to lot coverage.
Now, is that gonna be a divider between those 2 lanes, or is it just gonna be 2 lanes with like a yellow line or something?
There's a 2-foot striped out area for team members to stand within when they're taking orders at that second lane. So it's a 2-foot wide striped area
Between the lanes,
between the lanes.
with shrubbery in there too,
It's concrete, it's at the same level of pavement. And that's the path for your team members to walk into for
Your team members
that
going to
second
stand there,
lane.
right?
They don't wanna cut grass, that's what it is.
Like I said, the team members going to be climbing the trees.
I'm still really confused on a pedestrian aspect, on how pedestrians would access the restaurant, especially with crosswalks,
Yep, so our main frontage is here.
right?
You've got your ADA spaces up along the frontage. And then this is your main parking field, so
Correct.
you would park here,
No,
walk
but
into the store.
I'm talking
and
about
back.
people who don't own vehicles.
Yep.
People who take the bus, which there's a high traffic of buses there.
Yep, so there is a public sidewalk along Route 9.
Right.
Here's our sidewalk connection right here.
Mhm.
The planning board's asked us to make this into a sidewalk connection, a raised curbed concrete area for that continuation of the sidewalk connection from here to our front doors.
Okay, and if they wanted to cross into the shopping center that you're right next to and essentially a part of, they would have to walk into a non-sidewalk area and essentially the dumpsters of the Indian restaurant and liquor store.
Not a non-sidewalk area, so we've got that crosswalk right here at our drive-through exit.
Right,
And then this sidewalk connection right here.
yes.
Coming over,
Going right to
To right
no
here.
sidewalk and an entrance to the dumpsters of the liquor store and the restaurant.
so there's a sidewalk along this entire area right here that would lead to.
There's not.
Right here, you're saying there's no sidewalk?
There's no sidewalk. And you're taking away, again, the road that those people use for trucks that come. So you're going to have truck congestion there as well.
Yeah, we'll take the delivery comment back and talk to the ownership about that, because I can see your concern there. But you're saying people are going to walk either here or they have to walk
Yeah,
down here instead,
because
is
we're
what you're
also,
saying?
I mean, the plan is also in the same shopping center. I don't know if you're aware. They're going to put a grocery store, there's going to be a gym and a lot of other things as well. So I'm assuming there's going to be a lot more people going from place to place.
Yeah, this connection was a result of some discussions with the planning board, so we'll take a closer look at where exactly that should be to allow that connectivity.
Yeah, like if it could go a little more straight out this way, and connect to that sidewalk on the other side of the street. It's a little more diagonal across the street, but I've seen that before.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's just a shadow line. I don't think there is a sidewalk there.
Anybody else have any more questions before? Okay, go ahead. You know, I
Sure, so-
think we beat that up.
Yeah, so everybody understands the site plan and the operations. So in our application, there was a few area variances that we're here tonight requesting relief from the zoning ordinance for, and they're really related to, I'll call it drive-through and then signage. So let's talk about the site plan and the drive-through ones first. So West Merritt Boulevard is actually a private road, and our property line for this center is right here. It's hard to see on this plan, but it's this black line right here. It's not in the center of the road. It's a very irregular tax parcel boundary right here. West Merritt Boulevard's treated as a frontage because it's our main access street. So we're seeking relief from the setbacks as it applies to West Merritt. So in our January 6th submission, on page 2 starts a table of the requested area variances. The first one is a front yard setback, West Merritt Boulevard Road. We've got a 125-foot setback requirement where 51.6 feet is proposed. And that's from the center line of the street. So West Merritt Boulevard being classified as a street, center line from the street, 125 feet is this dashed line right here on this plan. Our building's compliant, but this accessory structure or canopy over the drive-through is within that setback. Variance number 2, same exact situation, only rather than the center line of the road, we've got a 100-foot setback from the property line as well, where 66.2 feet is between the property line and this edge of the canopy. Variance 3 was the impervious surface discussion. 70% impervious area maximum allowed by code. Existing is about 77%. We're requesting relief up to 79.7% as this redevelopment project does increase impervious surfaces. We talked about the loss of 2 parking spots. However, the addition of the drive-through is where that delta comes in, as well as accommodating for the shared access roads within our limit of disturbance. Number 4, drive-through location. So no access to a drive-through is required within the front 100 feet of the front lot line. Here's our drive-through entrance. It's obviously within 100 feet of our front lot line. But remember, the unique situation here is we don't have access off of Route 9. So the intent of that provision of the code is we don't want our drive-through in the front if your access is off the front, because that could be a queuing or stacking concern back out to the public right away. So in this situation, our access is over here,
Now, let's take a look at that
not to
corner
Route
there.
9. Yep,
Can we make that bigger?
sure. I think I can.
Okay. Now, it looks like you've got a lot more concrete there than you really need. Am I reading that right?
So the white stripes are
The
hard to
white's
see,
all
but you've
concrete,
got
right?
two lanes of your full drive-through, and then you've got the third lane
Right.
acting as a bypass and what they call a flex lane. So what that third lane does is during peak hours, they could deploy that third lane for a third lane of order, and then it merges down to 2 lanes. Or also, if third-party order or third-party apps, mobile orders on the app become a certain percentage of volume of transactions, rather than having those folks park and walk into the store to get their meal, they can deploy that third lane as your mobile pickup lane,
Well,
then you don't
aren't you
have to go
doing
to the
that in the
store.
front with the parking spaces in the front?
Right, so once it becomes a certain percentage of volume, rather than having all that volume parked, go into the store and leave, they can deploy that third lane as the pickup, so you never have to park and get out of your car. And the mobile app will tell
And
you.
where would they pick it up? At the awning, or do they have to go all the way around the whole building?
They would enter this third lane, bypass the menu boards, right, because they don't have to place their own order, they already have, and then they get in queue to pick up at your meal fulfillment area.
And this is for people who've already ordered, right?
That's right.
This is for people who already ordered.
That's one use of that third lane. It also acts as the bypass, like I mentioned, and during peak hours, they can deploy that third lane for normal drive-through queue if the demand calls for it.
So do you need those spaces for the pickup in the front? Or do you want, or you're gonna have both?
No, so the majority of the time, if you order ahead, you're parking and going inside and picking up your meal.
Right.
But in some instances, and they saw this through COVID, where the majority of their customers started using the mobile app. And if that becomes 25, 30% of the business, rather than having that many folks park and go into the store, the mobile app can tell you to go to that outer drive-through lane.
And is that used heavily? Is that used that often where you're putting a whole lane?
Yeah, to your point also, Ron, it's like you said during COVID, what is the, I guess, reporting after COVID? You know, are people still, like, to me, there's a lot of driving, there's a lot of parking, there's a lot of cars. So I'm interested in knowing, does this actually reduce the amount of exhaust and running cars and that kind of thing? Because it sounds like you're like in and out, you know, let's get them in, get them out. They're ordering either online or they're ordering in the queue. I mean, to me, it just looks like a whole lot of cars and a whole lot of movement, and, you know, I'm kind of personally curious, is this actually reducing, you know, the amount of exhaust in cars and sitting and waiting and cars running and all of that? Or is this just kind of setting it up so that people who don't feel like getting out of their cars can just sit, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, but believe me, I park as close as I can to the door, I get it. So,
Yeah.
you know, that's not anything disparaging about your customers, but I am kind of curious about that, you know, I mean, what, to Ron's point.
Well, I guess,
Third lane.
Yeah, to answer your question, it is all about efficiency and reducing the queue length and the queue time. So that third lane, I mean, that's a big cost, adding that much additional concrete, drive-through curbing. They
All
wouldn't
right,
build that
well-
if they didn't need it.
It looks like it merges with the second lane at the
At this corner, that's
on the
right.
second corner, yeah.
Yep.
Now, how many cars do you expect in these lanes before you hit that awning, before you hit that over, that,
Really testing my memory. So we can fit about 40 cars within the drive-through from your pickup
no, before you hit the,
to here. From here.
before you make the order, between where you make the order and the entrance,
Here.
yeah, between that spot and you place the order, how many cars do you expect in each lane?
Yeah, so the stat that I have, and then we can kind of back into what that makes, so from the pickup window to the drive-through entrance, about 40 cars.
40 cars. 20 each lane.
Yep.
That's a lot of
Very
cars.
Optimistic.
That's a lot of cars.
So Chick-fil-A is very different than your typical quick-serve restaurant that we might be familiar with around here. Bowler is actually partnered with Chick-fil-A across the the East Coast, out of New York State. Bowler, the firm I work for.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And I've been working with them since.
What restaurant is that?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, our food wouldn't be any good. Yeah. So I've been working with them from, 2016 is when we first started in the Syracuse market, and we expanded out west of Buffalo and Albany. And as more stores open, we get more knowledgeable. We've studied queues, we've studied traffic demands, we've studied parking demands at other locations, and that is what backed us into the size of the drive-throughs that we are proposing and need.
Have you ever considered using permeable surface? I mean, that's a lot. I mean, for me personally, and it is an underutilized parking lot, but, I mean, it's like, it just seems that it's just
I guess what I'm looking at
concrete jungle.
is trying to cut
Well,
down.
we're going from 77% to 79. It's really not a significant impact from what's out there today, right? It's a paid parking lot today, and we're trying to provide new use to it. We have the data that supports the size of the sites and the stacking and the parking that we feel we need, and that's what we're requesting. And if we
It's a
didn't
busy
need it,
area.
we want to build it.
Yeah, there's a lot of
You think there's
traffic
some way
going
we can
through,
cut down that corner?
just in my, and it's only quote unquote 2%, but it is still 2% in a, kind of an environmental wasteland, if you will, where, they're really, we're losing ground as far as, habitats and even just those intermittent places where wildlife can pause before they go, across another parking lot. So that's always comes to my mind when I'm looking at things like this. And it also, this is the gateway. And someone actually said to me today, driving up Route 9 is so ghastly in Fishkill. And so.
Yeah, this is the developed corridor. You drive there and
Yep.
you've got everybody right there. Yep.
Yep, right down from the Putnam County line.
Just to share, this is the landscaping plan that was submitted with the application. They really take pride in their landscaping. Look at all those shrubs, trees, landscape architecture that went into the thought here. It's not a, let's pave the site and just have grass. They want it to look good. They want to provide the buffering that you're talking about, break up the large pavement surfaces. And in this table, it's some impressive numbers. Seven canopy trees, 16 evergreen trees, 5 ornamental trees, 77 of these shrubs, 39 of those shrubs, 51, 29, 65, 25, 15 grasses, different type of ornamental grasses, 52 of them, 21, 12 perennials, 100, 43, 53. They like landscaping. So I hope that helps offset that 2% a little bit, because it's not going to be just mobile grass area. They're trying to really beautify this corner.
I could just jump in for 1 second, just to remind the board and the applicant that, what we're doing here tonight, right? We're getting into an awful lot of
And we have-
minutia of things that are typically reserved for the public hearing. And I think the public, once the public hearing is opened, the public can benefit a lot, I think, from a lot of these comments, and that the more we get into the nitty-gritty detail of the planning of it, the more that's going to end up not in the public hearing, when the public's going to be here and able to hear it and comment and feed off it. So, just as a reminder, we're here to hear any updates, hear where they are at the planning board, and then to see whether it's appropriate to accept it, refer it, and schedule it for a hearing.
Thanks for keeping me on track.
Yep.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So number 5, the last area variance is the same thing related to that drive-through entrance. You know, similar to the canopy, 2 variances for the canopy, 2 variances for the drive-through entrance in the front yard, given those setbacks of the property line and the center line of the road. Do we want to jump over to signage next?
Sure.
Yeah, let's jump that over.
Okay. Signage, there's 4 additional area variances requested from signage. We got wall sign size. You're allowed 40 square feet of aggregate of all your signage together, where 211 is proposed. We're proposing a monument sign. 1 is allowed per lot. We're proposing a second one. Here is the first one. Way down here for the mall, or the town center and this art parcel.
That's the town center sign, right?
It's the town center sign, that's right. We're proposing a monument sign here. That makes sense, right? Here's our access drive. So far away from the sign. You need to see the sign relatively in the area that you're going to make a traffic maneuver to enter the site.
Yeah, we'll save that whole discussion for the public hearing.
Primary signs per establishment, 1's allowed, 5 are proposed. And a freestanding sign per establishment, 0's allowed, 1's proposed. Like I
Where
mentioned.
is the 5th one? It
The
says
5th sign?
5 primary signs, 4 in the building. Where's the 5th one?
Right here. This is considered a sign.
That's the 5th one.
That's what you said, it wasn't an identifying.
It's not a
restaurant.
branding sign. They like it because it connects to the community. It says, "Welcome, friends and neighbors."
Welcome, friends.
And then right at the bottom, it says Fishkill, so that's their stamp of the local area on the sides. And the wall signage right there, very basic script saying what it is, and that's it. No other branding besides the wall signage of the name of the restaurant. And as you know, those are proposed on all 4 sides, given we're a standalone pad site, attracting customers from all 4 directions. Any additional questions for what we're proposing?
Sorry.
I don't think so.
Okay. I was going to turn it over to Melissa real quick just to address the county comments, unless the board wanted to just go into discussion from here.
Did Melissa want to speak? That'd be fine, sure.
I'm sorry.
I got you.
Thank you very much. I try not to get too far into the weeds, as you had discussed earlier, but when we reviewed the county comments, there's a number of written recommendations that do not appear to align with the final determination to deny. It sounds through the recommendations as written that these are largely local concern, and instead of checking that box, it may have just been an oversight or in haste, but unfortunately it means that the ZBA would have to overcome it by a supermajority if they chose to. And I think that one thing we wanted to point out is that the county's review is limited to what impacts the inter-community. I brought the GML with me, and it talks about it's to bring pertinent inter-community and county-wide planning zoning considerations to the attention. And I think that a lot of these variances are actually internal to the site and not necessarily along 9. We briefly wanted to go over some of the area variance standards, if that's okay. I won't get too far, 1 sentence each. I've not gotten too far into the weeds on it. But just to offset that, the county's considerations, of course, that we talked about are in our community. Your charge as the ZBA is more about these standards that are in the town law. And so you have to consider whether the character of the neighborhood is going to be impacted. And when I look even on a Google map, or I drove around the facility, both sides of Route 9 have commercial buildings and facilities very similar to what's being proposed currently. And so it's not really changing the character of the neighborhood so much. The one monument sign is very consistent with what you see all along that stretch. The benefit, there's no other way to provide this kind of wayfinding signage and building identification. Substantiality, you don't look just at the percentage, and this is just a one sentence. I won't delve too deeply into this, but you also look at, again, you're going back to the community character, and as we've already established, it's not really altering. The fourth has to do with the environmental impact, and we've argued in our letter, and I would say again tonight, that it actually improves the environment because it's a wayfinding signage. Instead of having cars that are, we would call it rubbernecking, I don't know if you use that term here, but instead of having people trying to figure out where's that Chick-fil-A, they heard it's open, they even go for breakfast for chicken, and I think that it's slow traffic, they may swerve, they may, if they don't know, they can't identify the location appropriately, but with signage, that problem is resolved. And I think that, the balancing of these factors is really the ZBA's concern with these variance requests. And I think that I believe that the county, in its write-up, is actually saying that these are largely local concern, that these are workable. And then they've checked a box that states denial, which I think may, but I worked for municipalities for years, and I think that we sometimes get very busy and we get very, overwhelmed with some of the tasks that are thrown at us, and it may have just been an oversight. But again, their concern is the intermunicipal, the intercommunity standards, something that's along Route 9 would be of concern to them. And that's where the one monument sign, which in the recommendations, they specifically state they don't really seem to take an issue with. They talk about some of the other signs. And so our request from the ZBA would be to make sure that you're thorough and considering the standards that you are charged with considering. And when you're looking at the county referral, read through the comments very closely, because the checkbox doesn't necessarily match what's in the recommendations.
Thank you, Melissa. So with that, Mr. Chairman, we're here tonight to hopefully schedule a public hearing to move on to the next steps to further deliberate and discuss this matter. At our last meeting last Thursday with the planning board made a motion to take lead agency for a secret review. So before this board will actually act on the variances, we do have to obtain that secret negative declaration for this unlisted action by the planning board. So we envision the next step of being schedule the public hearing, refine the application from there based on public input, go back to the planning board for a secret determination, and then back here one last time for a potential decision.
Well, we will be having quite a lengthy discussion, I believe, on the signs, but I would like to have that at the public hearing. Okay.
And
so, does anybody have any more questions?
Nope.
Do I have a motion to accept the application?
To everything done, you need to
Yeah,
schedule a public hearing.
I misspoke before, Debbie corrected me. We did accept and refer, but we did not do a scheduled public hearing, so all you
That's
need
what
is a
I'm
motion to
asking.
set the public
Do I
hearing.
have a motion to schedule a public
Motion
hearing?
to schedule a public hearing?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I would just ask, from now to our public hearing, review our signage, take a look at each individual sign, and each sign is there for a purpose. We're not just trying to get as many signs as we want. There's other buildings with 2 signs on 2 walls. We're not trying to do that. We've got 1 sign per wall, simple aesthetics that make it look good, because each wall sign has a purpose. Attracting customers from each direction, giving them advance notice to make the vehicle turning movements to get into the site. So that's just what I would ask as we
Understood.
open that discussion with an open mind.
I totally understand your position.
Thank you.
Ron, if I could just interrupt, you just need to, for the record, mention the date of the public hearing, being March 18th. Please.
It would be next
7 p.m.
month, the March 17th?
18th.
March 18th.
March 18th. March 18th.
Thank you.
17th?
18th.
18th. Okay, March 18th. All right. See you then.
I may not be here, I've got a new baby coming March 17th, so we'll see. But
Well, congratulations.
Congratulations and good luck.
thank you, I appreciate your time tonight.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
Okay, the next application. This is going to be fun. We're going to talk about ZBA application ZB 24008, Town of Fishkill Planning Board, appeal of the Town of Fishkill Zoning Board's zoning administration's determination on the ZBA application ZB 24004, timely signs, Heritage Financial Credit Union, 1476 Route 9D, the proposed digital monument sign. Public hearing was opened and closed by the board on January 21st, 2025. The board will continue to review this application and may consider a motion to enter into an attorney-client session to seek legal advice from their counsel. Okay. So, how do we go about this? Are we in a public hearing right now, or?
No,
No,
just read that
We
we're
read,
closed the
we closed it, now we're going to make a decision on what to do with this, right? Whether we should agree or
Leave that up to
disagree.
Dave, but I believe that's correct.
Yeah, that's what's next. You've got 62 days to decide it from the close of the public hearing. And I think, if my memory serves me right, what you wanted to do was discuss it a little bit tonight, and if you need to, have an attorney-client session, since it's an interpretation. Almost always those lend themselves to needing legal advice on how to apply the different laws and so forth.
We went through quite a discussion with this last time. Do we need any more discussion about this?
I don't think so. I think we beat it up pretty good last time.
I think we did too. Are we ready to make a decision, whether we should agree or disagree?
Oops. There goes my pen. So usually what I recommend when it comes to an interpretation is, again, you can get some legal advice if you need it, and either way, you can kind of discuss which way you want to go and discuss it out loud, so I have an idea, and then I usually don't like, unlike an area variance where it's usually pretty straightforward from the discussion, and I can draft, you know, how we usually take the motion to approve based upon the discussion, and then a motion to direct me to prepare a resolution and to authorize the chairman to sign. Because there's, you know, anytime there's an interpretation, there's some legalities involved, and usually what I like to do is follow a slightly different procedure, which is get some direction, and then I draft, and then at the next meeting, there's a resolution for you all to consider and to approve that resolution, and I've drafted it in accordance with what I've heard and what the law is. And that way everybody is approving the resolution. So doesn't have to be done that way, but that's my advice typically when it comes to any kind of interpretation.
Well, I know how I feel. Kath, you want to start off?
Oh, stop, let me first. I personally, I feel like it moves, and I think that a sign like that could morph into just about anything once it's already in place. And
This is about Joel's interpretation.
right, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
I think there's movement.
I'm sorry?
There's movement on the sign. There's
Okay.
definite movement, and there's potential for even more movement.
Doug?
Well, I just have a problem with it creating a precedent. You know, we don't need these signs everywhere in Fishkill. I mean, we start to look like a mini Las Vegas, which is an overstatement, of course, but on the other hand, I'm kind of betwixt because I also think that there are some words and semantics in that law, so it's kind of confusing. Honestly, I'm right on the fence.
Tim?
All right, I think I made my opinion pretty clear last month, but we are looking at overturning an interpretation of the town code. And again, it is an interpretation, okay? And I've been told several times, we have to just look at this particular case in front of us. But my feeling is, if you're going to overturn one interpretation, I personally feel that I have to look at the track record of the interpretations, and I think by somebody applying for a building permit is asking for an interpretation. Somebody says, well, you know, this is the first time that we're looking at an interpretation. But there's been other signs in this town that I've talked about before, and they've applied for building permits. Okay, they were not deemed illegal. Nobody complained about it. So I think that Mr. Petrus's determinations have been pretty consistent, whether it's a determination that was asked for or whether it was his determination when the building permit was applied for. So based on consistency on his determinations of legal and illegal signs, I think I have to stand with his determination.
I wasn't here last month, so I can't make an intelligence.
Staying here, well,
We'll save it till next month.
I'm not sure whether the other signs like the school, the firehouses, or the town rec actually applied for building permits. I'm not sure.
There was a couple of them that were before us on sizes and so forth.
Size, yeah.
So
Size, yeah.
to get here,
Yeah,
the building department had to
yeah.
deny that. So yes,
But
they were before us.
with these LED signs, I'm not,
Well, they're
but-
all LED signs. But listen, we're not here to debate that one.
but, yeah,
And I'm not here to campaign for this one way or
yeah,
another.
I understand, and
Your opinion
I
is your
understand,
opinion.
I understand where you're coming from, because, you know, you pointed out, you go down Route 52, and you see the school, you see the roundabout Station 2, you see the roundabout Station 1, you see these LED signs.
And if it was me, it'd be like all of a sudden, wow, why me? You know?
Case
Really?
by case.
Yeah.
Case by case.
And I get it, but
So,
I have to look at the code here. And the code is very specific. Signs with flashing, blinking, intermittent, or moving lights, or any artificial light, and so on and so forth. It's very explicit. So I have to go with that,
that's fine.
you know?
I agree. I mean,
So I think the town board is going to have to come up with some sort of a standard for these LED signs,
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely.
you know?
The town board needs to get involved and get
Right.
this verbiage
We
straightened out, so
we
it's clear.
can beat this up and argue and whatnot, but, you know, I'm going by the way I read this, you know, I have to go with this here, my interpretation, and I don't agree with Mr. Petrus.
And
So,
one thing that I'm not sure.
and he's going to smack me around with
Oh,
this.
that's fine. One thing that I'm not sure if you're aware of, though, is Mr. Petrus was also involved in the writings of some of this
Yes,
town
I
code.
know that, yes.
With the attorneys.
Yes.
So he would understand what the intent of that code was.
I-
And that's kind of what made me lean that way. Like, this guy knows what he's talking about. He helped write the code with the attorneys.
Yeah, we've had that conversation, yeah.
Yeah, so,
But like I said, I'm looking at this,
yeah.
Whether
you're
the
interpreting
intent
it your
was-
way. Yeah, I got it.
whether the intent was there,
I got it.
and apparently those discussions were, you know, apparently somebody didn't agree with those discussions, you know? And maybe now they're going to have to bring those discussions back to the table, you know, and
I think we should go back to the signs like the village has. To all written signs with spotlights on them. We don't need any of these neon signs. But
I'm okay
that's
with
not going
that,
to happen
too.
either.
Then we wouldn't be having this conversation.
So, all right. So what do we want to do? We want to vote on this?
Well,
Do we feel we need legal advice? I don't think so.
I don't know, how do you think this is
Isabel,
leaning
do
here? I mean,
you have any questions?
So we've got,
I don't like the, digital signs. There's a code.
But I mean, as far as you up to speed on Joel's interpretation and...
No, because I wasn't here last month and don't feel like it was fully up to.
so you'll abstain from any,
Yes.
so right now, what I see, from what I've heard, I've got two clear overturn the building inspector, grant the appeal. I've got one clear uphold the building inspector. I've got one abstention, and I've got one on the fence.
Sorry.
Am I right? Have I recounted that about right?
Yeah, I
Sounds about
think
right.
so.
No pressure on your shoulders.
The options are, obviously, you've got 5 voting members of the board here. There are a few options, right? One, you can continue to try to convince each other tonight. And if you can, you can. If you can't, you can't. You have 62 days from the date of the close of the public hearing to make a decision. You don't have to make a decision tonight, but you can. You could, if Elizabeth were so inclined to go back and look at the tapes and do that and get up to speed to now come in and say, I'm comfortable at the next meeting, that's certainly an option. Doug, if you are still on the fence, you need more time to think about it and to go back through it, that would align with that plan and make up your mind at the next meeting. Or maybe you have your mind made up and you're just, you're keeping us all in suspense.
No, I'm not. But I would also like to see if we can get that 5th vote and give Isabel a chance to catch up.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
like
Did I say
Isabel
Elizabeth?
to
I said
up to
Elizabeth.
speed.
Isabel.
Huh?
I would like Isabel.
That's what I'm saying. I would like her to be up
Yeah.
to speed so we get a good,
Yeah.
solid 5 vote.
I agree.
So I think let's put this off till, next month,
Okay.
all right?
Yeah, that's fair. And again, if any of you individually, are curious about what the standards are, that I haven't already made them clear, or Isabel, if you, having watched the tape, I gave a lot of advice, which I usually don't give. I gave it out in sort of the open. And if you need to call me about what standards are out there,
Yeah,
just
they've
call me in
been
between.
For 3 months now, I started to feel better, so.
Good.
I don't know, taking a lot of my time.
Yeah. So, okay, so that's what we'll do.
Sounds good.
That's great.
Okay.
All right.
So we'll just, we'll carry it as an agenda item next month.
Same thing, right?
No need to make a motion to that effect, it's just carried forward.
Okay.
All right, so what's my favorite motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you.